By 1944, Europe had been locked in total war for nearly 5 years. Millions lived under military occupation as the Nazi regime stretched its control across the continent, embedding its symbols directly into the streets of Paris. The Allies, led by the United States, Britain, and Canada, faced a massive geographical problem. They held the manpower and the industrial might, but they lacked a direct overland entry point into Western Europe to begin a counteroffensive. The solution was Operation Overlord. To breach the continent, the Allies assembled millions of tons of steel, thousands of vehicles, and entire armies to launch the largest seaborne invasion in human history. Crossing the English Channel undetected was impossible, so the Allies fed German intelligence a steady stream of fake radio signals and built entire phantom armies out of wood and rubber. They placed inflatable decoys in empty fields to convince high command the attack would land hundreds of miles away. Despite years of continent-spanning strategy and elaborate deception, the success of the entire geopolitical plan eventually rested on a brutal requirement. Flesh and blood soldiers had to step off boats and run directly into live artillery fire. That execution began in the pitch black of June 5th. Before the boats even launched, thousands of Allied paratroopers jumped from transport planes into the heavy winds over occupied French countryside. Almost immediately, the meticulous invasion plans fractured. Cloud cover and anti-aircraft fire scattered the planes, leaving men to land miles away from their designated drop zones. They tumbled into flooded fields and dense hedgerows, completely alone in enemy territory. With no clear chain of command, these isolated soldiers improvised. Small groups banded together in the dark to hunt down enemy communication lines, cut telegraph wires, and seize critical river bridges to stop German reinforcements from rushing to the coast. The success of an invasion involving thousands of ships suddenly hinged on whether small groups of terrified, isolated individuals could hold a dirt road in the dark. As dawn broke on June 6th, the massive armada finally appeared off the coast of Normandy. They targeted 5 distinct sectors of the coastline: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. The most heavily defended of these was Omaha. Packed shoulder to shoulder inside metal landing craft, soaked by freezing spray, infantrymen watched the coast inch closer, waiting for the ramp to drop. When those doors opened, the troops stepped directly into overlapping arcs of machine gun fire. Entrenched defenders inside concrete bunkers overlooking the beach rained artillery down on the water, turning the landing zones into kill boxes. Men weighed down by heavy gear struggled through the bloody surf. Units suffered devastating casualty rates in the initial waves. The survivors dragged themselves onto the sand, desperately pressing their bodies behind steel hedgehogs and wooden obstacles just to survive the next few seconds. Remaining on the beach meant certain death. Scattered groups crawled forward under heavy fire to dismantle concrete pillboxes with explosives or physically scale the sheer coastal cliffs using little more than grappling hooks and ropes. High-level strategic commands provided the opportunity, but securing the beachhead required localized, agonizing fights for inches of sand by individual squads. By the evening of June 6th, the guns on the bluffs had fallen silent. The defenses were broken, and over 150,000 Allied troops had driven a wedge into the French coastline, bringing heavy trucks, tanks, and supplies ashore. Establishing this position came at a staggering human cost. Thousands of Allied soldiers lay dead, wounded, or missing in the sand and the flooded fields behind the ditches. Their sacrifice secured a functioning port of entry. The men and equipment stockpiled in Britain for years could now flow continuously directly onto the European mainland. German forces, already bogged down fighting the Soviets in the east, now had to pivot. They were bleeding resources to contain a massive, fully supplied and growing Allied army right on their western border. By punching a single, localized hole through the coastal defenses, the Allies turned a stagnant continental occupation into an unwinnable two-front war. The fighting continued for another 11 months, but the momentum of the war had shifted permanently toward the Allied interior. For the first time, Nazi Germany faced a massive Allied force directly on the continent. The balance of the war had begun to shift. D-Day was not the end of World War II, but it was the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. History books typically focus on the broad movements of armies and the orders of generals. Yet, the physical map only changes when soldiers find the will to advance into a kill box. The liberation of the continent and the eventual fall of the Nazi regime trace back to the isolated, terrifying choices made by individuals during those first 24 hours.